Davida Wood from the World Resources Institute. I'm the track chair for the Energy Access track at SF. So today is actually the second session in the track on innovating the business models that innovate. Yesterday we kicked off the track with a session that revisited integrated resources planning from an energy access perspective. And we explored how demand for off-grid services can be characterized and integrated into national energy plans to make for a more cohesive approach in enabling environment. But of course, none of this work on characterizing demand means anything unless there are viable business models that can provide services to meet the demand, right? So that's what today's panel is about. And in a moment, I'm going to cede the floor to the session chair and Nikki Arcas from ARC Financing. But before I do that, I just want to make one more comment about the symbiotic relationship between these two challenges of characterizing demand and finding innovative business models. If business models have support in characterizing demand, they can scale their businesses more easily. On the other hand, finding business models that can unlock finance is what will create the momentum towards a more supportive enabling environment and planning framework. So with that, let's hear in more detail about the innovative business models, and then perhaps in the end we can come back to the broader context of the enabling environment and how demand can be better characterized. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Davida, and welcome to all of you to this panel, which I think is going to be really interesting. We've got a group of great speakers. And before I do that, I just want to express special thanks to the ADB, to Nexent, to WRI, for pulling together this great group of people, and to all of you for coming out to be with us. So our panelists are going to highlight a range of business models that are designed to facilitate the provision of energy access. The business models will focus on innovations related to financial mechanisms, technical solutions, institutional arrangements or modalities, all geared at expanding access. Unfortunately, Usman Ahmad of Nizam Energy in Pakistan was unable to come due to visa issues, and I'm personally quite devastated because I grew up in Pakistan, so I was really looking forward to talking about childhood memories with him. We'll miss him tremendously, but we have a really excellent group of panelists here that I know that you'll be all interested to hear about. So as you know, we're in track 3. This track's all about increasing energy access, and over the past 3 days, we've repeatedly heard that the key to success in expanding energy access is financing that's targeted at scalable solutions. So after everyone's presented, I'm going to bring us back to this question of scale. And I want us to really drill down on those models that are most poised to achieve scale. People bandy around that term, but I think we need to take it quite seriously and see whether we can reach scale and also what we mean by scale, because people mean different things by that terminology. We're also going to look at the potential for replicability, because if it's something that only works in one place, perhaps it's not as useful to the world in terms of this notion of expanding access. And we're also going to talk about which market segments are most likely to benefit from the proposed solutions. So please, as we go along, note down any questions or comments that you have. We really want to have a lively discussion afterwards. And we want to explore in more depth some of the thoughts and ideas that were prompted through these presentations. Before we start, a very quick word on ARC Finance. We're an organization based in New York. Our focus is on financing clean energy and water, with particular emphasis on consumer financing mechanisms and supplier credit. We're very interested in a range of business models that serve that end, including microfinance, asset financing mechanisms, some of which have pay-as-you-go, remittance models. So the business model conversation is one that's, again, particularly of interest to me and to my team and to our partner organizations. So I'm going to start with Katerina Hasbani. She is a board member of the Alliance for Rural Electrification, or ARE. She also manages business development for the Revel Group, with a special focus on Asia, sustainable energy, including renewable energy, energy efficiency, and rural electrification. Before that, she worked for the Dubai government and also for the European Commission. What she's going to do is outline key learnings in innovating business models for standalone PV systems, and she's going to provide some case studies from among the RA members. And she's going to tell us a little bit more about RA, its members, and what it does to expand energy access. So with that, Katerina, over to you.
Everyone wants to innovate, but innovation is not easy. As an entrepreneur once told me, it comes from serendipity. The ideas come from where you don't expect them, and particularly they come from relationships. And Nicola, thank you for reminding me that an idea is nothing without execution. So sometimes execution is the most important part of innovation. What I will do, I will provide some learnings that we gathered as an organization on innovation from the Alliance for Rural Electrification. I will present 3 case studies and what worked for our members, and I hope you can learn something from that. But first, let me tell you a bit about the Alliance, which is a global alliance. Our companies, we have almost 100 members who are all companies. They work across the whole value chain of the rural electrification industry. The Alliance includes large companies such as Siemens, ABB, or Schneider Electric, but others are small and medium-sized enterprises, such as Rahima Frost, Solar Kiosk, or Energy Boost that I will be talking about today. On this slide, you can see, it's a very dense slide, you can see the members, but you can also see the partner organizations with which the Alliance work. What we do is that we provide insights and channel of communication with public sector for our members. We provide a platform for discussion and identification of best practices in policies and regulations. But also, we are a place where our members meet and we make the serendipity happen through sharing of knowledge. One of the topics that is very important for our members, of course, is funding and access to funding, and innovative financing is something that we strive for as an organization. We also provide trainings for our members on how to make that project bankable, so we go really to the project level. Based on the experience from the Alliance, innovation in rural electrification happens when it's combined with productive use of renewable energy. And by productive use, I mean commercial, industrial, or agricultural activities that generate income in the communities. The benefits of this approach go beyond innovation. Of course, the increased income provides stronger local economy, empowerment for women, better healthcare, and I'm happy to discuss some of the other elements after the session because that's a different discussion to have. But what I want to go to is highlighting again some of the challenges that come along. There are many, and the most important you probably know, it's an appropriate policy and regulatory framework. As an organization, we are particularly keen to ensure level playing field for renewable energy in the countries where our members work. Access to finance is another challenge, and we are happy that one of our sister organizations, Power for All, has recently issued a call for action for international donors to come together and build super funds that streamline funding for rural electrification projects. Lack of local capabilities is also something that other members struggled with. But I want to discuss a bit more in detail the positive side of things, the learnings and the success factors that led other members to have successful projects. And the first one, and probably the most important, is involvement with local communities. Each of the projects that succeeded worked in the field, near market, long before it started. Another success factor is financial commitment of the community, which ensures sustainability of the business model in time. And the last one seems simple, but it's really sharing of experiences and best practices, and it's a very fancy formulation. But essentially what it means is that you learn from the mistake of others. I will talk about 3 case studies. Each of them provides a different example of innovation. First one is Rahima Frost. Company is based in Bangladesh. And what it does is quite fascinating because it takes the solar home system distribution model, which is very simple, and it leverages it into a multi-service distribution channel. Solar Kiosk innovates around a simple product, the beautiful solar-powered shop that you can see in the picture. And Energy Juice innovates around agricultural activities in Africa. Rahima Frost is very active in Bangladesh in the national program for solar home systems distribution. It actually connected already more than 600,000 customers. But this is not unique. What is unique about the company is the use of an ERP platform, actually already since 2007, which allows it to gather data about its customers. Rahima Frost has information about the location of their installations, about the regularity of payment of their customers, quite interesting. And it also provides an easy-to-use app for Rahima Frost's promoters who sell the product to the customers. What Rahima Frost innovates around is using the system to offer additional services, sales of appliances, provision of banking services to unbankable communities. Some of its customers, for the first time, were able to get a loan or make a bank payment. It will also offer top-up services. It's currently discussing with a telecommunication company to offer this service to its customers. We are very happy as an organization to support Rahima Frost in the execution side because we supply Rahima Frost with the additional funding needed to improve its services through a grant scheme that the Alliance is managing on behalf of its members. Solar Kiosk is very different. It innovates around one product. It's a lightweight, modulable shop that is ready to make and can be deployed in any rural community. What is unique about this product are 3 aspects. One is its design. You can see it's very distinctive. It's German-made, it's beautiful, and the rural communities love it. At least I was said so by the owner of the company. Another aspect is the use of smart technology. The kiosk is equipped with a technology that allows to gather data about electricity demand and optimize future electricity supply. The third aspect is the modulable nature of the kiosk. It can increase its internal size. It can be transformed into a school, shop, even a movie theater. The solar capacity that is attached to the kiosk can be increased, and if a community requires it in the future, it can become a center of the future mini-grid. Solar Kiosk is growing quite aggressively. By the end of this year, it will have 200 units deployed in Africa and Asia. In Asia, it's in Vietnam and soon in Cambodia, for example. And the plan is that by 2019, there will be 2,000 units deployed in both continents, Asia and Africa. What I find interesting is that Solar Kiosk innovates the actual business model approach to rural communities, because its motto is that good design is not a privilege of the first world. And I know my time is running out.
I'm going to give you a couple more minutes as a special gift.
Thank you so much. I get very excited. Sorry about that. Energy Dose uses solar-powered installation to improve productivity in agricultural activities. It works on 3 streams: solar-powered mills, solar water pumping, and solar lighting. What Energy Dose does is that it reduces time spent on labor-intensive activities, which allows the community to do additional revenue-generating activities instead. It also extends the commercial operation by providing solar lighting. These are just 3 case studies. There are more than 30 on our website. Feel free to check them out. I would love to discuss with you after the session, during the Q&A, how you innovate, what are some of the challenges that you are facing. And thank you, Nicola, for giving me the additional time.
You can thank Usman and send him an email in Pakistan saying that his non-arrival gave you a few extra minutes. So next we're going to have Randy Rahmadi, who is an analyst at the Climate Policy Initiative, CPI. He's based in Indonesia, and his work focuses on climate financing in energy and land use. He specializes in corporate finance and was in investment banking prior to joining CPI. Randy's going to talk about the barriers to scaling up finance faced by private investors, and he's going to describe 2 initiatives that identify, develop, and accelerate innovative financing instruments to drive large-scale investment to clean energy. So Randy, if you want to pop up.
Thank you for the introduction, Nikki. So good morning, everybody. My name is Randy Rahmadi. I'm an analyst from Climate Policy Initiative. So I'm going to be presenting about our initiative, which we like to call it as the lab. This is an initiative which help facilitate investments in low carbon development projects through innovative finance instruments. And I want to start off with this graph. So every year we have we provide an estimate on the total of climate finance globally that goes to mitigation and adaptation. And for 2013, for example, total climate finance reached $390 billion, and that's represented by the small blue circles over there on the left. And if you compare that with the large gray circle, that shows how much we actually need to meet our low carbon objectives. Now, even for clean energy alone, we estimate that we need $5 to $6 trillion through 2020. So we're definitely falling behind our goals, and we need new and innovative solutions to scale climate finance and bridge this gap much more quickly. So what is the lab? So Climate Policy Initiative has 2 sister initiatives. One is the Global Innovation Lab for Climate Finance, and this initiative targets developing countries in general. And then the second one is the India Lab for Green Finance, which obviously targets the Indian market. Now, both of these initiatives support the identification and piloting of new and innovative climate finance instruments with the aim of mobilizing billions of dollars of private capital into low carbon development projects in developing countries, and specifically in India. Now, the ideas are gathered from the public through crowdsourcing, and the final analysis and the design of these instruments are also open for public and can be accessed on our website. So how does the lab work? Typically, one lab cycle lasts for around 1 year, and it starts with an open call for the call of ideas. This is where we gather ideas, innovative ideas from the public through crowdsourcing. And ideas can be for mitigation or for adaptation. And it can cover a range of sectors, including renewable energy efficiency, infrastructure, forestry, agricultural, and etc. So this is the first phase. The lab typically will come up with a short list of ideas. They will go through to the next phase, which will be further analyzed and stress tested in a collaborative approach. Now, each of these ideas will be analyzed and measured against a set of criteria that the lab has established previously. And those ideas who meet the lab criteria will then be selected and endorsed by the lab, and then go through fundraising processes and plan for implementation. And through this approach, so you can see we are able to move ideas to action fairly quickly. So this is a set of criteria that the lab is looking for from ideas. Ideas must be actionable, which means it must be able to be implemented within a few years. So we typically aim 2 or 3 years maximum that ideas must be implemented after being endorsed by the lab. Ideas must be innovative, which means it must address specific risks, or it must overcome certain barriers which have not been covered by existing instruments in the market. Ideas must be catalytic in terms of its ability to mobilize private capital at scale. And ideas must be transformative in terms of impact, sustainability, and replicability. So the lab is guided by 22 principals and their advisors who are senior high-level experts in climate finance. And members include representatives from government, investment funds, pension funds, investment bank, insurance, and etc. Climate Policy Initiative acts as the secretariat of this initiative and provides the analytical support. And this governing structure is one of the crucial aspects of the lab. We make sure that the initiative is surrounded with the relevant people and institutions, especially those who are constantly looking for opportunities to invest in low carbon development projects. So we launched the first cycle of the lab in 2014 and ended in 2015. From this, we got endorsement from the G7 and has so far raised over $500 million for piloting for instruments in a space of less than 1 year. So at the end of the first cycle, the lab endorsed 4 instruments, 3 of which are energy related and 1 on land use and agriculture. I'll give you a bit more details on a couple of these energy instruments shortly. So right now we are the global lab. We're in our second cycle, while the Indian lab just started late last year. And both initiatives are currently finalizing our analysis, and then we will be making a decision and select the final instruments by the end of this month. So just to give you a bit of flavor of what the lab instruments are like, this is the first case instrument that we call Climate Investor 1. So this instrument consists of 3 interlinked facilities which aim to deal with the complexities of different stages in renewable energy development project. These facilities include, first is a donor-funded development facility, which targets earlier phases of development, which tends to be perceived as riskier by investors. Second is a construction finance facility, targeting the construction phase of the power plant, obviously, and then refinance facility, which provide long-term, low-cost debt capital due to the lower risk associated with post-construction. So, in short, this facility aims to provide
I think the problem's not with you, Randy.
Okay.
So you should just go ahead, and everyone else will have to dream about the presentation. And actually, let me at this point give a pitch to all of you. I was playing with the system outside. You can download the presentations and email them to yourselves. For those of you who haven't done it yet, this is an opportunity for you to play with one of the cool technology components that have been added. And for those of you who haven't used the app yet, you should also download that and start connecting with one another. So Randy, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so in short, these facilities, these three interlinked facilities, provide an end-to-end financing solutions for renewable energy projects. And here we are targeting so far wind, solar, and hydro projects. And we offer this financing at lower cost than what project developers would be getting in the market. And in addition, this facility also aims to fast-track development by avoiding complex negotiations with multiple financiers and stakeholders for project development. The idea was proposed by the FMO, or the Dutch Development Finance Facility, and Phoenix InfraWorks. And today, Climate Investor One has attracted over $500 million in initial commitments. Now, fundraising will still continue in 2016, and we're aiming for $1 billion in financing target. The second instrument is energy savings insurance. This is an insurance product which aims to enhance the trust in energy efficiency projects from project developer and lender standpoint of view. So this instrument consists of one risk mitigation instrument, which is the insurance itself, which covers the projected value of energy savings, and it is supported by a package of complementary measures such as credit lines, long-term credit lines, third-party validation, which the insurance will rely on to provide its insurance, grants, and also performance-based payment to the energy service providers. The idea was proposed by the Danish Energy Agency and being funded by CTF, Clean Technology Fund, Danish Energy Agency, and currently being implemented by IADB. The idea is already underway, being piloted in Mexico with $25 million in initial funding to fund 190 projects. And that is all from me. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much, Randy. Next, we're going to hear from Rakesh Char, who is the Director of Infrastructure Consulting at Megraj Capital Advisors Private Limited, which is a consulting firm that focuses on investment banking and infrastructure consulting. Rakesh has over 19 years of experience in the energy sector and has also worked on standalone mini-grids, renewable energy parks, rural electrification-based mandates, among other things. Rakesh is going to talk about innovative business models to address the challenges experienced by mini-grid developers in accessing finance to grow their projects. He's going to describe the key role that government support can play and how a credit risk guarantee facility and the establishment of a performance-oriented support mechanism will prime the market and increase the flow of capital. So, Rakesh, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Nikki, for a very good introduction, and very good morning, friends. Why we are talking mini grid, especially this aspect today, role of credit risk and facility, because we know that whenever we deal with mini grid projects, we come across two issues. And these issues are first related to sustainability of the project, whether the project will still continue, say after 4 years, 5 years, or 10 years down the line. And second is that, even before that, whether the project developer, they are going to put in 100% equity or they are going to get some loan from the banks and FIs. So I'm certainly going to address a couple of these issues in this presentation today. But before that, I would like to spend a minute on what we do in India and overseas. I'm from Megras Capital Advisors, and this is a group of Megras Group is international investment banking and fiduciary services, and we work in infrastructure consulting. We also work in all kind of investment banking domain that includes syndication of debt and equity, merger and acquisition, inbound, outbound transaction, foreign exchange broking, and all these things. When it comes to infrastructure consulting, largely our main domains are in power, urban, transport, and roads. We are quite active on the RE front in India, along with other aspects of our sector, especially generation, transmission, distribution, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. We are working on all these aspects. And a couple of flagship projects that I can share with you are, since India is now kind of hotspot for solar investment. So we are working a lot on solar parks. We are working a lot on solar rooftop projects. We are also working a lot with Government of India and other agencies on promotion of mini grid in India. You must have heard a couple of speakers in the prior sessions. They were mentioning about a state in India, a fairly large state, which is called Uttar Pradesh. They have recently come up with policy and subsequently with regulation. So we feel very happy when we share that we were consulting, providing our services to the government agency there, especially in drafting the regulation for mini grid, which is first time in India this has been done. And we try to ensure that whatever issues those are there, and for mini grid, those are especially related to risks, we have tried to address all these through our regulatory exercise there. Lot to be done on mini grid in India and other countries, especially developing countries, least developed countries. Because if you see, as far as meeting targets are concerned, government can claim that they have met the target. For example, you can see here that a couple of states shown here, for example, Bihar and UP. If you go through their data, especially on the village level electrification, they have achieved more than 97%, 98%. So 98% of the villages are already electrified. But when it comes to household level electrification, they found farmland, especially in the context of Bihar and UP, where according to this is like Ministry of Power data that I'm showing you here, 87.3% of the households, they are still not electrified. 71.3% in UP, they are not electrified. So that means a lot to be done for mini grid to bridge the gap. But why? The problem is why this is not happening, why DISCOMs, they are not extending grid there. If you could see the average cost of supply for a typical DISCOM and the difference of average cost of supply and tariff that they get from these consumers, which is almost 2 cents per unit. So in a nutshell, if they provide electricity to these households, they are going to lose revenue, and they are already in bad financial mess. So this will add, provision of supply of electricity will add certainly to their problem. So certainly solution lies in mini grid, but there are issues related to sustainability, financing, and what would happen when the grid would arrive there. To address a couple of these issues, we were working very closely with the ministry in India, which is called Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, MNRE. MNRE wanted to shift from capital subsidy design to something which is like you perform better and then you get better incentive. If you don't perform, then you are also penalized. So we used to call it result-based incentive or performance-based incentive. So we worked on this model for the ministry. And under this model, the key differences were that all the bid process management will be taken at the central level, so that a project developer who is trying to bid for mini grid projects will have substantial size in his hand. Say if there is a state level bidding, then maximum project allocated capacity can be say 1 megawatt or 2 megawatt per project developer, but in case of central bidding, it can go up to 10 megawatt. So size increases. Second difference was that we were also trying to make provision for counterparty guarantee for these project developers. That means banks and FIs will have something to lean upon to provide loan to these project developers. So this was another critical aspect. And the third and final aspect was on performance monitoring. So there was lots of emphasis on inclusiveness, on performance-based ranking, that means credit ranking of the project developers, and based on the ranking, either you are incentivized or penalized. So this is what we work along with the ministry there. And the performance metrics was designed to provide incentive for good performance and also penalize for if you are not performing up to the mark. So the parameters for the project was largely on whether the project is generating the power that it had declared that it would in the DPR. Household electrified, minimum number of households to be electrified that has been achieved or not. And inclusiveness, this is a very important aspect for performance-based incentive, because if the government of India or any government in any country, if they provide capital subsidy, the notion here is that it's for the rural households who are supposed to be connected. It's very good to include anchor-based loads in the modality, but you can't ignore rural households. So this is why the key element of inclusiveness is very important. And we try to ensure that at least 70% or 80% of the households present in those vicinity are getting electrified in the process. Then maximum project capacity can be increased or decreased based on the rating of the project. Finally, again, on this performance-based incentive, the major difference was largely that we made a room for a local entrepreneur joining hands with a bigger developer, so that they could take care of O&M services and the bigger developers could take care of other facilities, say providing technology, capacity building and other aspects. Since monitoring is going to be a very strong component of the entire framework, so we made a provision for third-party monitoring agency, which will be monitoring the project on a regular basis based on the predefined parameters. Banks, they are supposed to provide loan provided there is a credit risk guarantee facility. So the subsequent phase of this project, we were working with MNRE, the ministry there, and they asked us to develop a detailed framework how this credit risk guarantee facility would work. So this was the beginning of the second phase of the project, which is like defining the framework for credit risk guarantee facility. The guarantee facility was largely based on three major principles: that it should act as a tool for risk mitigation and credit enhancement measures. Second, can this address to substitute part of the collateral that they are supposed to provide to the banks and FIs? Because without collateral, banks and FIs, they are not providing loan. And if the bank has already provided loan and there is a kind of failure of repayment by the borrower, then what would happen to the loan that has been provided by banks and FIs? So this credit risk guarantee facility was largely based on these basic principles. And in the operational parameters, since I can't take you through the entire framework, I'll just touch upon the key aspects of this. And even after presentation, if you want, I can share with you all the details of this is also available in public domain, in fact. So we try to clearly define what should be the fund models, who are eligible to get the fund, what are the risk sharing mechanism under this, how much risk will be shared by the banks, and what percentage will be shared by the guarantee facility. Who will create the fund, who will manage the fund, what are the fees involved in this, what are the operating procedures and processes, and then what kind of organization will be required to manage the fund. What are the accounting and reporting procedures, and very important, what will be the performance monitoring mechanism in this. Eligibility, we thought at that point of time that minimum project capacity can be 20 kilowatt, but this will vary according to the need or according to the geography or the demand of the area where you are working. It was technology neutral, and we were trying to promote both self-use and third-party based consumption. Risk coverage, largely it was divided like 75% to be borne by credit risk guarantee facility and 25% by the banks, because they are supposed to do a proper due diligence process so that the loan doesn't become NPA subsequently. Last couple of slides, especially how you can, we also defined the process for default claims. If the amount is due for 90 days, the bank, they are supposed to intimate the fund. Initial legal proceeding will start after that, and they can file claim when amount becomes NP as per Reserve Bank of India guidelines. Then they can claim processing fee, whatever fee that has been assigned there. Then the banks were given some freedom to liquidate collateral and pursue for recovery. Proceeds from sales and collateral was also supposed to be divided between the banks and the credit risk guarantee facility. And as I told you, that performance was the key under this process. Based on the rating of the project developers, there was some concession on the fee also. So upper band, middle band, and lower band was created as far as getting fee from them. Finally, if you could see the performance evaluation, the entire guarantee facility was based on two-pronged evaluation mechanism. One was for the FIs and the beneficiaries who are getting this facility. So what happened to the loan portfolio, whether the size increased, whether the default rates increased or decreased. Interest subsidy, after 2 years of operation, it was supposed to give a kind of incentive for project developers who are working quite well. If you have defaulted, then the penalty was also devised there that the interest rate may be increased. And we were trying to create a room for a centralized credit information bureau to do this performance assessment, which was supposed to be done on a regular basis. Finally, on the performance of the scheme itself, so we wanted to make a kind of based on 3 years or 5 years based evaluation, and largely these were based on macro level parameters. So what happened to the facility, whether additional loans were disbursed or not, it could lead to employment generation or not, and whether it could lead to direct or indirect revenue generation for the project. Finally, this was the size of the fund, 14.77 billion. This is what has been proposed. And we were trying to leverage this at least 10 times. So this was possible with the fund that the ministry and other donor community, they have already promised. So based on this, if you could see, the impact on beneficiaries will be a total project size of around 246 million will be there. And there will be net flow of 100.46 million by the FIs. So this, and ultimately this entire framework or the fund is still sustainable even after 8 years. So you'll have more funds after 8 years than you started with. So this is what I had to share with you. If you have any additional information, if you want any additional information on the entire framework, I can mail that to you. You simply need to drop me a mail, and I'm available here for further questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rakesh. And one thing I wanted to mention to all of you, I'm sure those of you who are speakers have felt the frustration of trying to get all your ideas across in 10 minutes. The solution we came up with was to put a bunch of supplementary slides afterwards. So that's another incentive for you to download the presentation so that you'll see there's a little bit more information there, but also obviously connect to the speakers. And so our last speaker is Katrina Hergström, who is a consultant with SNV. SNV is based in the Netherlands. Her experience is in the area of renewable energy with a particular focus on Australia and Southeast Asia. And Katrina has developed a number of tools to facilitate technology transfer that achieve energy, water, and resource efficiencies. She's also worked on energy efficiency and on organizational and institutional development in government and civil societies. Katrina is going to talk about some new mechanisms, solutions, and institutional arrangements to ensure the inclusion of climate change mitigation in sectoral gender mainstreaming strategies and gender sensitization of national climate change action plans. So what I'm hoping she's going to do is make the business case for including women, because that's what I think is really important. And I wanted to say, just sort of anecdotally, that this is one of the few panels I've been on that deal with the centrality of finance, where women outnumber the men. So guys, you're going to have to stand up for yourselves and make a good case for more men to be included next year. So on that note, Katrina, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Nikki, and I'd like to thank ASF and the ADB for giving me the opportunity to come here today and talk about a project that I've been involved in for the last 2.5 years, which is called, sorry, I'll come to the title later, which has as its key outcome ensuring gender equality of co-benefits from renewable energy projects. And it's a project that involves women not just as the passive recipients of energy services, but as the active providers of these services within their communities. And there are institutional, technical and financial aspects to this project. I more or less feel as if I brought this project home coming here to talk about it because it was generated out of the ADB office here in Manila. Okay, I'm a consultant, as Nikki mentioned, with SNV, which is an institution in which an international NGO working to end poverty, something that SNV has been doing for some 50 years now, and across 39 countries, spanning most of the globe. Our work's in 3 sectors primarily, as well as renewable energy, in agriculture and WASH. Okay, the project that I want to talk about today is called Harnessing Climate Change Mitigation Benefits, Initiatives to Benefit Women. See, I'm still stumbling over it after 2.5 years. It's not a name that slips off the tongue easily, nor is it a name that's easily understood by most people who hear it for the first time. I get a lot of blank looks. I'll try to explain it to you. It's a project across 3 countries, Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos, which have their similarities, but they certainly have their differences. One being the vast difference in populations, with Vietnam a population of some 93 million, Cambodia about 15-16 million, and Laos not yet 7 million. So quite different population structures to deal with, quite different institutional arrangements, and it certainly provides an interesting environment to work on. So, 3 countries. In each country, we've been working with an implementing agency, a government partner, as well as a women's organisation. And we've made an institutional intervention in each country. There's a pilot project in each country, each of them being a different technology. One of them has a revolving fund associated with it. And there are a number of knowledge products that will be generated, as well as, of course, many beneficiaries from this project. Okay, the key project focus began with the intention of increasing the likelihood that projects generated out of this region would be eligible for green climate finance. But of course, since then there was COP21, and now all of the major climate finance mechanisms have gender mandates. So it's even more important now to include, as well as greenhouse gas reductions, gender equitable co-benefit distribution in projects if you're going to look for Green Climate Fund or any of the other finance mechanisms. And we've approached it from the position that if you deal with the institutions first and you get gender mainstreamed into policies and strategies, those institutions will likely develop gender-inclusive plans which generate gender-inclusive projects which are likely to be eligible for this kind of finance. And so as well as the institutional interventions, we have 3 pilot projects, one in each country, which serve basically as a demonstration of what a gender-responsive climate change mitigation project might look like. In addition, there are 2 other segments to the project which are led by our collaborators in Japan, IGES, involving a stakeholder engagement so that our institutional partners get to meet, identify and collaborate with potential partners, supporters, donors, advisors within their countries. And there will be a number of knowledge products at the end of the project. Okay, so firstly, the institutional interventions. In Laos, we've worked with the main environment ministry. In Cambodia, with a line ministry, which that is the Ministry of Agriculture, which certainly has a remit in the realm of climate change mitigation, and in Vietnam with a provincial department of the Environment Ministry. So we're working with three quite different institutional partners. In Laos, we worked on the National Climate Change Action Plan. Our approach in identifying what we would work with was basically to look at the time frame of the project and to consult with our partners to find out what institutional instruments, policy, strategy, documents were coming up for review in the time frame of the project. We didn't have a long time, only a couple of years, and most of these processes are already on a fixed 5 or, if you're unfortunate, 10-year review time frame. So we worked with the documents that we knew were going to be reviewed or were already in review to make some interventions in them. So in Laos, we worked with the National Climate Change Action Plan, and we introduced gender-responsive steps and language into it through a consultative process. In Cambodia, because we were working with the gender unit within the Ministry of Agriculture, they had no climate change mitigation in there. They didn't know anything about climate change mitigation, while adaptation was quite well known. And so we introduced into their gender mainstreaming strategy climate change mitigation actions. And in Vietnam, because we were working at a provincial level, we worked with the Climate Change Action Plan, which again had come up for review just a few months ago, and we were able to introduce climate change mitigation and gender-responsive approaches into that plan. So by choosing what was actually already planned for review, we were able to make some real inroads. And that involved considerable consultation and capacity building within those institutions. So going then to the pilot projects, in Laos, we worked with improved cook stoves, and in Cambodia, advanced clean cook stoves, in Vietnam, biogas. So looking first of all at Laos, we have women making the improved cook stoves. And they're earning considerable income from their businesses running cook stove production enterprises. And as well as that, the end users are enjoying the benefits of more efficient, cleaner stoves. In Cambodia, we're the higher end stove, advanced clean cook stove, where women are the sales agents. So they make their income promoting and selling stoves in their communities. And these stoves, because they are exceptionally clean, overcome a lot of the respiratory and eye issues that have affected people's health, particularly women's and children's health, when they are using traditional stoves in a domestic environment. And in Vietnam, women have always done the hard yards with construction. They worked as basically brickies labourers. But now, as a result of the project, they've had training, they are certified biogas enterprise masons, and they build digesters, and they make their own money independently. And the women in the communities enjoy the benefits of having biogas for clean cooking, and bioslurry as fertiliser, and they can even have more livestock, because biogas digesters, of course, process livestock waste. Often they can have more livestock, expand their businesses, because they've dealt appropriately with the waste. But these biogas digesters are relatively expensive in comparison with the other technologies in Cambodia and Laos. So there is a revolving fund that's been set up to provide financial support, and that is also managed by women. The women of the Dong Hoi Women's Union have been trained in business, in marketing, in communications, and they are now able to go out and promote the services of the certified biogas masons and get the biogas digesters into the community for the benefit of women and their families. So this is only a relatively small project, but it's generated enormous lessons on the ground for the kind of differences it can make to people and communities when you have clean energy access and you can enjoy all of the benefits as well as greenhouse gas emission reductions that come from it. I'd like to thank NDF as the funder and ADB as the executing agency for the opportunity to be involved in this project. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Katrina. We're now at the stage where we're coming to questions and answers, and I'm going to pose a couple of questions to the panelists, but encourage all of you to think about questions as well that you would like to put to them. So my first set of questions are for Randy and for Katerina. Did you notice how they set me up to have a Katerina and a Katrina? So far, I think I've done okay. But for Randy and for Katerina, both of you are working with business models that are relatively unique themselves, but what you're doing is you're catalyzing a lot of initiatives and sort of projects that are not necessarily so unique. So I wanted to hear from you whether you're starting to see clusters of projects or partners, in your case, Katerina, that are coming in around particular topics or areas, and also what you see as the potential for scale and the replicability of those kinds of businesses, and what your organizations are doing to sort of facilitate that. So I don't know which of you would like to start. Maybe Katerina, for you.
Thank you. My answer to that question would come at two levels. One is project level, and one is more a clustered approach that ARE takes. At project level, the important link is really between the idea and the execution, which is the most important part of the innovation. So having the necessary resources to make sure that the execution happens. And that's when the clustered approach comes in, where organizations such as ARE can help in providing the policy and regulatory framework, the funding, the skills and the capacity at different levels. But ultimately it comes down to having a model that has sustainable revenue generation. And that's, the most important point. So what our organization has been pushing for is really this productive use of renewable energy, which we see as a way to ensuring that revenue generation to make different types of model viable.
And are you seeing your partners scaling? Or is it a bit of a mixed bag at the moment? You can be honest with us. We're just among friends here.
Sure. So when preparing this presentation, I approached our secretariat asking, which are the models to be highlighted. And their answer was pay-as-you-go model. But then when I was approaching the different companies, actually what I experienced is the result is the presentation. So a diversity of models. So complicated response to a simple question.
Thank you. So Randy, what about in the case of CPI? Are you seeing businesses coming in clustered around a particular kind of theme or topic area, or are you seeing real diversity among the types of organizations that the labs have supported?
One of the interesting aspects about the lab is that its ability to move ideas from ideas to action fairly quickly. We use crowdsourcing. That's where we believe innovative ideas come from, and in the past, or experience in the past 2 years, we received so many good ideas. Every year we receive 100, 150 ideas, and in both cases we have to leave out so many ideas, so many good ones. And what makes this initiative successful also, we make sure that potential investors are involved throughout the process from the beginning to end. They're involved in idea selection, in the analysis, and they're also the ones who vote for the final instruments. In terms of theme, every year we do have a theme or what kind of emphasis we're looking for. Like this year, we put special emphasis on adaptation. And it's not possible next year we could change that thing to energy access or something else.
Great, thank you. I also wanted to ask all of you whether there are particular market segments that you're focused on. So, this particular session is about increasing access, and I'm wondering whether you're seeing more of a focus at lower income levels or kind of more upper middle class, lower middle class or upper sort of low income levels in terms of the targets of your programs and business models. So maybe Katrina, we can start with you on that.
Okay, well this project was particularly focused on the lower income level, and it's been very successful at that level, especially the Laos and the Vietnam parts of the project, because in Vietnam there is the revolving fund which supports very well the purchase of the digesters, which are a more expensive product, and in Laos it's actually a very affordable stove type. With the product in Cambodia, the technology is more expensive. There is no financial support to the purchaser. There is some financial support to the purchaser, often from the actual distributor, but in any case it's largely targeting a slightly higher level of income.
And Rakesh, what about your initiative? What kind of client segment is that targeted at?
Ultimately, the benefits of rural electrification, especially if you see in any country's context, which is true in India and other developing countries, that the poorest of the poor, they are still left behind. In fact, they don't have access to electricity. So certainly, whatever you do, whether in terms of you're trying to better the model performance-based incentive or trying to facilitate loaning through credit risk guarantee facility, the benefit will extend to the ultimate beneficiaries. That means the poorest of the poor households who can't afford any other alternate mechanism. But the model that I presented, especially performance-based incentive and credit risk guarantee facility, it would have a chain impact, because here the problem lies with the banks and FIs. Because of the fear of NPA, they don't extend loan. They need collateral, they need better balance sheets of the project developers. So because of that, they are not extending loan. But when a credit risk guarantee facility is there, certainly that issue is addressed and they are the first beneficiary of the project, of the initiative. Second, when they are extending loan, whom they are extending to? They are extending it to the project developer. So right now, if there is no loaning facility, if there is no credit risk guarantee facility, what is happening that project developers, they are forced to use their 100% equity into a project. So they are the second level of beneficiary. And ultimately the third, what I told you, poorest of the poor household who are getting ultimate benefit. So this is why I'll say in the presentation that I made, it will have a kind of good chain impact of the benefits.
Great. Katerina, moving to you, what are the kind of support systems that are needed to catalyze commercial approaches to improving energy access? What's the sort of ecosystem that this needs to live in for it really to realize its promise?
Well, ideally, First, there is a level playing field created at the level of policy and regulation for renewable energy. Essentially, for our organization, it means progressive elimination of subsidies for fossil fuels, and where it's possible, providing some sort of support mechanisms to promote renewable energy. But then what comes in is the need for speed to scale up, right? And there, technical assistance facilities and really instruments that help in the execution phase become critical. This can be done through form of grant or accelerators that are being developed at national level. And what is very important actually is to design KPIs. I really liked Rajesh's presentation where he mentioned some of the KPIs they included in the scheme that he's been developing in India. So the KPIs are those that will ensure that the execution is progressing.
And I actually think that entities like the Alliance are also a key sort of facilitating mechanism. So you're being very modest, but I think the fact of ARE is actually an enhancer. And Rakesh, back to you for a second, because in India there's a technical term for technical assistance called hand-holding, which I love as a term to sort of help facilitate this. So can you talk a little bit about that and how that works with your organization?
So I'll try and limit this to mini-grid area only. So when you're talking of technical assistance or hand-holding, it starts right from the stage of policy formulation. This may start at the central level or this may start at the state level, because India is a federal structure. You have a central level guideline, then you also have states who are forming their own policies and regulation. They can pick bits of the guidelines suggested by the central government. So anything, say for example under mini-grid right now, we don't have any kind of mini-grid specific guideline. So the ministry is working on that, and then we are also involved with the ministry there in drafting, suggesting on different aspects. There are lots of aspects related to mini-grid. So on a couple of aspects, we are also adopting something and suggesting something to the ministry there. So it starts from there, the central government. And then at the state government, right now I can share that we are quite active in the state of Uttar Pradesh, and wherein they are trying to promote mini-grid, because they realize that grid, even if these are extended, they can't provide 24/7 supply, because there are other issues related to availability of power and at what cost you are trying to supply them. So at the state level, we are working with the state nodal agencies to frame up their regulations. This is what we have successfully done. After the regulation, now we are assisting them in development of detailed implementation guideline for the policy that they have already formulated and adopted, for the regulation that they have already issued. So detailed guidelines we are trying to implement. And then based on these policy and regulatory guidelines, they are also trying to allocate projects to project developers. So hand-holding also includes, or technical assistance also includes preparation, taking them through the entire process of bid process management. So it includes preparation of request for proposal, evaluation of proposals, getting into contract management as well. And then once the projects will be awarded to them, and they will be getting into commissioning phase as well. So most probably we will be also providing them PMC kind of hand-holding, so that they could ensure that whatever projects that they have already allocated gets commissioned on time, and it's based on the performance parameters that they had already defined before the commissioning of these projects. So this is what a typical hand-holding or TA, key ingredients in India.
Great. I'm going to ask one last question before I hand over to all of you. And this will be for Katrina and for Randy. Are there any external factors that could either positively or negatively affect your business model? Thinking about things like technologies, competition, policy initiatives, etc. that you've had actual experience with, that you can imagine theoretically that you'd like to share with us?
Well, dealing across 3 countries and with 3 different governments, one thing that we have seen as a real impediment is the fact that the majority of the banks in Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos are not government-owned, they're certainly government-controlled, and they're exceedingly conservative and risk-averse. And we're talking in relation to the kinds of projects that are community scale. We're not talking about large amounts of money, large amounts of risk anyway. And so if governments could see their way to actually accept a reasonable amount of risk, I think it would free up enormously the potential to upscale production and upscale distribution and get clean technologies out there an awful lot faster. Whereas in fact they're among the most risk-averse, conservative institutions one could hope to find.
Thank you. Randy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. In our analysis of the lab instruments, we measure each of these instruments against a set of criteria and their ability to address specific risks. But the thing is, each instrument cannot address all risks that is exposed to them, and external factors driven by market forces usually are one of the barriers that we're facing right now. Risks like currency risk, interest rate risk, those type of risks are still out there.
Before I hand it over to the audience, Davida, do you have any questions you'd like to raise? I'm sure it's provoked some thoughts for you.
I don't want to take too much time away from the floor, but I'll just ask a quick follow-up question. So a number of you mentioned the importance of demand data and performance metrics to your business models. To what extent is it feasible to share some version of that data with governments and investors to help them better understand demand?
Yes, certainly. I mean, we would like to, because whatever projects are, as I mentioned, that whatever we take under these 2 projects, it had a very strong component of performance metrics, and everything was based on what kind of key performance indicator that we are looking for, either from the banks or the project developers or ultimately at the beneficiary level. So we had, before we could start the framework, we tried to jot down what are the key indicators that will be required to assess at the beginning of or at the end of the project. So certainly we would like to share wherever possible all these details, KPIs and everything.
Does anyone else want to add something?
Well, what I would like to say is that the KPIs actually should be on both sides, right? In terms on the project developer side, but also on the government side. So ideally, we would like to see a situation where there is a commitment of government, and we can track the KPIs of the government along with those of project developers, because they are dependent on each other.
Just to add that there are sectors where the data is shared, I think, very transparently in kind of web-based fora. In the microfinance sector, there's a thing called the mixed market, where you can actually go and look at the performance data of any MFI in any country context. So, hopefully that will start to be developed for some of these other sectors that we're looking at. So on that note, is there anyone in the audience who has a question? Please come up to one of the mics. And if you can announce yourself, and try and keep your question short and tweet-like.
My name is Ridwan, I come from Indonesia. I am now helping the government of Indonesia developing an electrification plan for the rural areas. So my question will be for Rakesh, definitely. So some sort of in the guidelines that you already developed, or in the regulation that you already developed, how far you balance between the flexibility of any business model that can be proposed under the schemes versus the control result of the KPI that you already mentioned? Because it seems like we are here. I've been here for since Sunday, and so many business model can support it. It's not only about AC service, could be DC. It's not only about the wires who transfer the electricity, but could be a person via, or could be informal service like solar power pump, for example. How can you balance those things in the regulations between the between the model and the business model and the KPI? Thank you.
Very pertinent question from our developer's perspective. And we are wary of the situation, what you're raising, and I'll just quote an example of the regulation that we have issued on behalf of the government agency in UP. So I'll give you a scenario. There may be a scenario where the village is not electrified and the project developer has entered into a village and established the mini grid. Okay, so this is one model where he has already invested and he is charging a kind of mutually agreed tariff to the consumer. He is supplying electricity to the consumer. So this is model number one. This is when the grid is not there. After say 1 year or 6 months, the grid comes, then what would happen to that particular business? What would happen to that particular investment? So now what we have made provisions that if the project developer is willing to continue like this, that okay, grid quality, typically in India, in Indian scenario, what would happen is the grid would come, they will supply say around 8 to 10 hours in a day, but during the peak hours in the evening or night, they will not have power. Okay, I mean it's a typical village setting there. So what would happen then? This project developer who has already invested, he will have two options. One, he will continue supplying to those consumers at the mutually agreed tariff. So there was one issue before the issuance of the regulation there, that if the grid is there, then at what tariff these project developers will be supplying to the consumers. Whether that tariff will be regulated by the regulators or not. So the regulation is very clear that that tariff will not be regulated. So you can continue charging the tariff that you had negotiated with the consumer. So this is model number one. Second option is given that if you want to if you want to get out of this business, then what you can do, you can sell off your assets to the distribution utility who has already come up with the grid at the depreciated value of the asset price. So for that, a third party will be appointed. They will do the asset valuation based on the depreciation that has already been achieved by that. So there will be a kind of assets to be sold to the distribution utility, provided there is a condition there that the quality or technical specification of the asset is compatible to the grid. If it's not compatible, then you can't sell. If it's compatible, certainly you can sell. So this is like what would happen to your power distribution network. So that has been taken care of. Now you have already sold off your power distribution network. What would happen to your generating station, which is already generating power? You are no more distributing power to your consumers. So the regulation has made the provision that you can now act as IPP, independent power producer, and you can sell your green energy, electricity, to the distribution utility there at a preferential tariff or feed-in tariff, which is already announced in the state, which is pre-existing. So this is how the model is flexible and trying to accommodate different scenarios which are emerging on the ground. So I mean, if you are interested, send me a mail, I'll send you the regulation as well. And it's not just one model, there are 8 scenarios that can emerge in a typical rural setup, and then there is a flexibility that you can migrate from one particular model to another model.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from a different person? If there are no other questions, please ask a follow-up question. Please come to the mic.
So somehow, no, you have a scenarios. That means we're thinking that the plan or the regulation might be developed again if the new scenario is appearing, and that would be the first question. The second question, how can you base those 8 scenarios? Is it based on the studies, kind of, market conditions that in the and so that's the scenarios into the regulation?
Very pertinent. I mean, whatever regulation or policy that you make, I mean, you can't claim that this will be a perpetual thing. So certainly you are supposed to revisit, tweak this as per the emerging market constraint or scenario. But before we drafted the regulation, we had a very detailed study that what are the models that is emerging in India and overseas. We also interacted with different project developers, in fact, and we also tried to assess what would be their expectation of the out of this regulation. What kind of benefits that they are looking out from this. We also talked to central agencies and the state nodal agencies to understand their constraints, because whatever model, I mean, it's very easy to put together a model, but what will be the financial constraints of this or impact of this on different agencies, that also we assessed. And based on this detailed assessment, whatever we proposed, certainly, I mean, we can say that this will at least, the regulation will at least try and address the existing scenario. But if the scenario gets completely changed in future, then certainly we have made a provision that the regulation can be revisited, say in a time duration of 3 years or 4 years. So that kind of flexibility is already there.
Do we have any other questions from anyone? If not, please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Max from the Indonesian Institute of Sciences, LIPI, Jakarta. My question addressed to Randy. On your presentation, it seemed to me that around 99 proposals apply and only 5 success. It seems that the rate of success is very low. What is the reason why it's not so many proposals can get this funding? Thank you.
Well, honestly, it in the end it depends on the amount of resources that we have available. I mean, we have to allocate a lot of analysts to analyze each of these distributors to make sure that they're robust. And so far, last year we came up with 4 instruments in the end, and right now we're increasing that to 6 instruments. So, yeah, it depends a lot on the resources. Doesn't mean that the other ideas are bad, it's just we have limited resources also.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Tayyip Sadr from the University of Cambridge. A couple of questions, one for Katrina and one for Rakesh. The advanced cooking stove that you showed, the price point, isn't that an hindrance towards adoption? For Rakesh, the subsidized, so if you grid connected, you get subsidized electricity. And if you come through one of these companies, it's not subsidized. So how do you, sort of convince a consumer to actually go for it? Is there, sort of an alternative that you show, so kerosene pricing and those sort of things? Thank you.
Okay, I imagine you're talking about the advanced clean cook stoves. Yes, the one that we started with does have a price point which is quite high, which is like over $100. That's not affordable by a lot of people as an outright payment. However, one of the key distributors is actually providing finance for that, or term payment, I guess. And one of the women that we spoke to who had bought one of these, who was by herself, who was very independent, and when we asked her how does she pay for it, she said, oh, I sell 1 chicken, or maybe 2, which is very nice. But now, as an adjunct to this project and pursuing real results-based finance, there's a range of stoves being auctioned to distributors, and the price at which they buy it for distribution is starting relatively low. We have the stoves with a price point, I think, of about $35, $50 and about $90. They're starting at about half of the actual what should be the cost price. And over a period of time, the gap between what the distributor pays and what the supplier requires to make a viable business is being filled by results-based finance, because there's a commitment to offtake. But that gap will slowly decrease as the stoves gain traction in the market. People recognise that they last a very long time, that they're a good product, that they deliver efficiency, because trust and establishment of reputation is enormously important in low-income environments.
what you have asked is a very tricky question, in fact, really very tough. In the sense that when you are providing subsidy, a government subsidy to a project developer, then ideally government would not like the project developer to charge a higher price to the consumer. But if you don't do that, because if you see the cost of generation, I'm talking from the solar perspective, the cost of generation from solar plant is somewhere around, say, 40 cents per unit in Indian scenario, whereas grid is almost at throwaway price, I mean hardly anything. But what is happening, there are different kind of scenarios emerging in India. In one corner, you may see that they are left open. If consumers believe or they feel the need of the alternate power, then they will pay whatever premium they are supposed to pay. Say if the grid is there, and I'm just repeating again, if the grid is there but you are not getting power from 6 to 10 in the evening, then the use of grid is, is of not much of use. So this is why if I have any other alternate source of electricity, which is even slightly, say, costlier, consumers, they don't mind that. But in couple of scenarios, especially in the context of UP, what has happened that the government of UP has earmarked or has put a ceiling on the tariff that they can charge to the consumer. They have said 5 rupees per unit, not more than that, because you are taking 30% subsidy for the project, and plus they are also allowing anchor load to be provided under this. So capital subsidy is also provided for the anchor load. Couple of places, what they are saying that whatever you do, we are giving you capital subsidies, but at least 10% of the total project capacity has to be dedicated for the domestic households at this price. So it's a kind of different scenario emerging at different places, but government is wary of this situation.
Well, we have run out of time, so I wanted to again thank the ADB, Nexent, and WRI for setting up this stream, and to all of our amazing panelists. I found their presentations really fascinating and encourage you again to download them. And also special thanks to all of you for joining us. We had a packed room with people standing in the back, so clearly there was content here that was interesting to everyone. Enjoy lunch, and please continue the conversations in the corridors and over meals over the next couple of days. Thanks again.